Listic,
Here.
Belzak,
Here.
7 present.
We have a quorum. It takes us to questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the city council on any issues that may or may not be on our agenda tonight. Anybody like to come forward and address the council on anything, whether it's on the agenda? Okay. Just checking. Okay. All right, that moves us to approval of the minutes of October 5th, 2020. I need a motion to approve. Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderwoman Sullivan. Any questions or comments? If none, the roll.
Shower,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
Clistic,
Aye.
Gustafson,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
7 ayes.
The minutes have been approved. Takes us to receiving of communications. Do any of the aldermen have communications they'd like to share? Alderman Clistak.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 pieces of communications that I received over the last 2 weeks. First one from Mrs. Athena Flores with regards to the chickens. One question she was asking with regards to the zoning is that she currently has a fence in back that's a chain link fence and has the little strips through there so you can't see it. I believe it doesn't meet the 6-foot requirement. And the question is, if the neighbor behind is okay with it, would that be acceptable? And the question is that we have, I think, no variances allowed in the ordinance. So that's where the question is on that item, that if neighbor behind is acceptable with it and you already have a privacy fence, do you have to tear it out and put a new one in? So I guess that's what it comes down to. And then the second piece of communication I received is from Janice Fisher. We had 2 more fatalities on Cass Avenue, unfortunately. One again near Waterfall Glen and Frontage Road there on Cass, and one last week on Jewel and Cass Avenue. I've actually been in communication with the supervisor at DuPage County and some of the elected officials, and they're looking at lowering the speed limit at Cass Avenue and Frontage Road, and still doing some more studies there. So residents, be careful.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had 2 of the same communications that Alderman Clistic had, both from Mrs. Fisher and from Mrs. Flores. I also had a couple of communications from Stan Nemec regarding the rebate that was voted on at the last meeting that we will discuss a little bit more here this evening, and also about the leaf pickup. Apparently the contract started on October 15th. His leaf pickup was he'd have to hold on to his leaves because of, our garbage day was Wednesday, the 15th was that Thursday. So I was just, concerned, why would somebody put a contracted date in the middle of a week like that? He wanted to know if that was us that put that, or was it advanced, and we let him know. So that's it.
Mr. Gombeck, you give us an answer for that?
As far as the lead pickup, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the contract. Brian,
No, I talked to Alderman Kenny and answered the question. Basically, it runs through a specific period of time, or actually X amount of weeks, and the garbage company tells us the first date they're available. It just happened to be a midweek. We did advertise it, and the dates we advertised were correct. This just happened to be a resident who had it out a day earlier than the program began.
Okay. Anyone else? Mary?
Thank you, Mayor. I too had the same communications from resident Flores about the fencing and chickens. I also received a communication from Diane Casilli. She is a resident of Brickeridge Creek, expressing concern about traffic and parking along Kearney Avenue, Kearney Road, most especially on October 3rd. The Honeybee Farm had their kind of end of the year event. I actually visited the farm that day myself and was toured. By the time I got there, it was later in the day, and there was no issue with parking or traffic. I actually parked right inside the gate. I have had, since I received Diane's email, a very productive conversation with the owners, Cindy and Tom LaRocca, and they're really not going to be doing much more this calendar year until springtime, and they have a tremendous willingness to meet with the residents in the Breckenridge Creek area, City of Darien Police, the county, whatever, to ensure that there's no traffic issues in any instance that they might have a little bit of a larger gathering on their property in 2021. They have also secured and have had in the past the hangar parking over at Breckenridge. So I think I've circled back with the resident, and I know the Honeybee Farm is looking forward to a great year next year. They had a ton of participation from local families this year, especially since so many people were homeschooling. That's it.
Anyone else? Okay, that takes us to the mayor's report, and I have several items, even though there's nothing listed. I'd like to state a recognition. I receive emails from the media people at both District 99 as well as District 86, so I'm constantly given updates with regard to staff and student occurrences. And last week I received notice that 2 teachers of District 99 were honored by the University of Chicago as outstanding educators. One is Karen Spar Thomas, who's a social studies teacher at Downers Grove North High School, and the other is Trevor Parker, who is an English and communications teacher at Downers Grove South High School. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Again, about a third of our students, and I wouldn't know if it's a third, but a large portion of our students do attend Downers Grove South High School. So I don't want to forget honoring those teachers which service those students. As many of you know, on Mondays I participate in a Zoom conference with other mayors and the DuPage County Health Department, the executive director, as well as a number of other staff members. And this is not a great report to make because the latest news is not good news. The latest news is that the number of cases in DuPage County as well as in the state of Illinois are spiking. For most of the summer, we were at a 4.3 to 4.7 positivity rate. 8 was the benchmark, and we are now at 8.5. And that's not Illinois, that's DuPage County. We are in Region 8. Along with Kane County, we comprise Region 8. Kane County is at 10.9. We're at 7.2, so we average out at 8.5. That means that the number of positivity cases per people tested on that day, and that's a 7-day rolling average, is going up. And hospitalizations are also increasing and going up. There's a very good possibility that as a result of this, that either this week or next week, if these figures continue to rise, we could see the Illinois Department of Public Health and the governor issue additional restrictions on restrictions that would work to mitigate this spike. The highest level of transmission comes from social settings. People who meet together in social groups, people's homes, they take their masks off, they think they're safe, and yet that's one of the highest areas of transmission. The state of Illinois is very concerned about this. This is not something that is just experienced by the state of Illinois. It's happening at a number of states in the Midwest. The highest rates of positivity cases are in the 20 to 39 and 40 to 59-year-old populations. And we also receive what's called a school metric. There's a special metric that is sent out to all the superintendents of every school district, elementary as well as high school. And there are different levels, and that metric this week is in what they call the substantial concern area. And with that type of metric, they are recommending that schools, that if they're having in-person learning, they go back to remote learning. All those schools have to make those choices for themselves. All in all, it's not good news, but I think it's news that needs to be presented. And as we're told constantly, one of the ways we deal with this is we wear masks, we wash our hands, we practice social distancing. And it appears that we've been getting around that a bit. The best way to fight this disease is by practicing those habits on a day-to-day basis. I am not looking to see us have additional restrictions, but we're waiting to see what happens this next week, and there's a possibility that we could lose several of the relaxation areas that we've experienced. And again, not great news, but it's news that I feel I must communicate nonetheless. This is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Our last meeting of the City Council, many people rightly spoke about breast cancer awareness. I know a number of people, as many of you do, as well as who have had to deal with and have died from breast cancer. So not to take away from the efforts to battle breast cancer, but to make sure people know that October is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month and has been since 1989. For many, home is a place of love, caring, and comfort. It's somewhere that you know you will be surrounded by people who support you. It's a nice little break from the busyness of the real world, and we can all use that break. However, for millions of people, home is anything but a sanctuary. The U.S. Department of Justice estimates that 1.3 million women and 835,000 men are victims of physical violence by a partner every year. It is estimated that every 9 seconds, a woman in the U.S. is beaten or assaulted by a current or former significant other. Not to lessen the impact on women, but 1 in 4 men are victims of some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. In addition, every year millions of children are exposed to domestic violence. Domestic violence incidents affect every person within a home and can have a long-lasting negative effect on a child's emotional well-being as well as their social and academic functioning. Domestic violence is prevalent in every community and affects all people regardless of age, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, gender, race, religion, or nationality. Physical violence is often accompanied by emotionally abusive and controlling behavior as part of a much larger pattern of dominance and control. Domestic violence can result in physical injury, psychological trauma, and even death. The devastating consequences of domestic violence can cross generations and last a lifetime. Though there has been substantial progress in reducing domestic violence, there is still need work to be done. And later on, under his report, Chief Thomas will be addressing some of the ways that we deal with domestic violence here in the city of Darien. Treasurer Corrin mentioned that it was some comments and concerns with regard to a rebate of money to several of the restaurants within the city of Darien. And he said he thought we should clarify that. I'm going to ask Mr. Vanna to join me in this conversation. Earlier this year, we made a decision to assist our restaurants. We have 49 restaurants and bars in the city, and they were closed for the most part. And we made a decision that when they were to reopen, if they were to reopen, that we would assist them by rebating the 1 1/4% food and liquor tax that they pay during a 6-month period that occurred last year. We decided to do that based on conversations I had with those restaurant owners, and I went out and visited many of them in person. I went in and talked to them, and a few of them, like who had corporate offices, I called. They were all concerned about their ability to open. They looked forward to an opportunity to have some funds to restart their businesses, and when the governor allowed outdoor dining to take place, they had some funds that allowed them to pay off invoices and bring back employees. That was a good move, and that totaled, I believe, about $298,000. As many of you know, the fall is coming, and with the fall, there is a possibility that the outdoor dining may come to a halt because of cold weather. What we decided to do is to look at those restaurants that had taken extraordinary measures to provide outdoor dining experiences. And by that I mean those restaurants that put up tents, installed heaters, bought additional tables in order to service people outside. And we took a look at that and said there's a good possibility that if indoor dining is ended through additional restrictions, we want to do everything we can to assist those businesses on maintaining outdoor dining. So we selected 14 restaurants that made that extraordinary effort to have outdoor dining, and we provided them with money from that same time period. Not the same money, but for the money that was been accumulated during that time period, which in this case was $108,000. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is restaurants and bars in the city of Darien bring in, just on the food and liquor tax alone, about $600,000 a year. And that's just on food and liquor. Then on top of that, they have sales tax. So what a lot of people don't realize is that we bring in probably $5.8 to $6 million in sales tax revenue, which goes a great deal to supporting the programs that we have on a day-to-day basis in this city. And that's not to diminish what taxpayers pay. What taxpayers pay pays our police pension fund. But the sales tax revenue and our other revenues are what pay to have this city operate on a day-to-day basis. So it is in our best interest as a city to make sure that we're working to ensure that these restaurants and these bars stay open, that we don't lose them. Now, we've lost one business already, the Steak and Shake on 75th Street, but that was going out of business even prior to COVID. So we're working hard to make sure these businesses stay open and remain open. Now, the other thing I'll add, because somebody made the comment that we're using taxpayer money. The $298,000 that we gave out in June, that money we put in for reimbursement to DuPage County. We were eligible through DuPage County to receive $1.1 million in CARES Act funding, and it had to be COVID-19 related. And we documented that $298,000 as a COVID-19 reimbursement expenditure. In other words, the only reason we had to spend that money was because COVID-19 was very much affecting these businesses in a negative way. So that is money. Now, when we gave the money, and I'll be perfectly honest, we didn't know we were going to get money back. But now we know we're going to get that money reimbursed. And this $108,000, there's also hope that we're going to get that reimbursed as well. Regardless of whether we do or we don't, we feel the money is well spent because it's working to assure that these restaurants and these bars, which produce so much revenue for the city of Darien, don't go by the wayside. And I don't know if Mr. Vanna has anything he wants to offer to add to that. Brian?
No, Mayor, I think you covered the points.
Okay.
Yep.
So I hope that answers some of the naysayers who sarcastically made comments that we were giving away taxpayers' money. That's not true. We gave this money back to these businesses who paid us this money, and we did it to assure that they stay in the city and they get to continue to operate. And that's all I'll say on that.
I also want to mention as well, Mayor, people work there. Darien residents also work at these restaurants, so we're also helping save jobs in the city of Darien as well. And I think
Correct.
that wasn't touched on as well. I have one restaurant in my ward, Baba's Grill. They had the unfortunate luck of opening in January 1st, and unfortunately they couldn't take advantage of the tax rebate just because they weren't around last year. But they spoke out to me and said this is a great program, and they wish they would have started 1 year earlier. But it keeps jobs right here in Darien. And a couple the waiters that work there live right across the street in the apartments, Farmdale Apartments. So helps save employment as well.
And again, the $108,000, I called the restaurant owners on the phone. I told them that what are your plans in the fall when the weather turns cold for outdoor dining? And they said they didn't know what direction they were going to be able to go in because they were so unsure. We only know what the last 7 months has presented us. We don't know what the fall is going to present to us. These are business owners that are scared. They had a lot of questions in their mind. And if giving them a few $1,000s to assist them to ensure that they continue that business, in my mind, that makes perfect sense. And that's why we did it. And as Alderman Klistek said, we have business owners in the city of Darien who live in the city of Darien. And a lot of them use that money in June to hire back employees and reopen. So that's a good thing. That helps our economy. Anything else?
If those businesses were to close up because we're not giving them any support, what do you think the city of Darien could stand to lose in the future going forward? I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but $500,000?
Well, the mayor did talk about the local food and beverage tax. I mean, if all of them went,
Right.
it's easy to see half of that local, going down. There's a couple other things. Some of those have video gaming, which we get revenue from. Some have amusement tax that might be generated from there. But depending on the amount of close. But if you lost half, that just on the local is about $300,000.
Right.
Treasurer Corn, did you want to add something? Okay. All right. So that closes my mayor's report. Moves us to our city clerk's report. Joanne?
This evening, we have the 2021 Vehicle Sticker Lottery. I'd like to give some history on that. In 1992, the City Council decided to offer the Darien Identification Vehicle Sticker to Darien community organizations through the lottery process. The following organizations were offered the opportunity to participate in the 2021 Vehicle Sticker Lottery: Darien Chamber of Commerce, Darien Women's Club, Safety Village of Darien, VFW Darien Memorial Post 2838, Younger Than Ever Seniors, Rotary Club of Darien, Darien Youth Club, the Active Seniors Club, and Young at Heart Seniors. There are 3 provisions that must be followed. The funds from the vehicle sticker donations to be used for community-related functions. The winner in 1 year is not eligible for the lottery for the 2-year period after winning. The city reserves the right to withdraw this lottery due to budget constraints. The successful lottery winner will be responsible for purchasing identification stickers that are approved by the mayor and city clerk and offering the same to residents on a donation basis to be available January 1st of 2021. Of the eligible Darien community organizations that were asked to participate, we had 1 response. So the winner of this year's lottery, or 2021 lottery, is the Rotary Club of Darien.
Congratulations to the Rotary Club. We'll be looking forward to their design. Our city administrator's report.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Department head questions and comments. Chief Thomas.
Thank you, and appreciate your comments about being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The police department, every case that we're sent to regarding an actual or suspected case of domestic violence, it gets reported and it gets investigated. We have to have a lot of good referrals and a lot of help in the community, and one of those very able-bodied and appreciated assistance comes from the state's attorney's office. When we have enough information to go forward with a criminal charge, they've always been very helpful in making sure that the criminal charge has been dealt with and prosecuted appropriately. Another is the family shelter. They provide a tremendous amount of work because domestic violence is different. Almost each case has little nuances and need help in a different way. So the family shelter developed a wide range of programs to help, including a children's program that helps children find ways to cope with domestic violence in their homes, counseling to help victims cope with the effects of domestic violence, court advocacy that provides support and information about legal remedies available to victims, how to help to be protected. Hotline provides information and services 24 hours a day. A shelter offers safe haven to victims of domestic violence and their children. Victim advocacy that follows up every police-related incident of domestic violence in DuPage County to check the victim's safety and to provide referral information. Assistance with getting orders of protection, which is a court order that provides victims of domestic abuse with various rights. The state statute that all law enforcement officers have to follow when responding to domestic violence call requires that certain things, and those include arresting the abuser when there's enough evidence to believe a crime has been committed. The officer does not have to witness the crime, which is a little bit different. Typically, you have to have a complainant. As long as there's enough cause to believe that the abuse has occurred, so witness statements, victim statements, physical evidence, and the like, then move forward with an evidence-based prosecution. Provide the victim with information on his or her rights under the Order of Protection Information Act, and always to keep safe along with the officer's badge and name. Provide to arrange transportation for the victim and the children to a hospital or a safe haven. Accompany the victim back to their home after she or he has left to provide protection while personal belongings are being collected. So there's a lot of things that the police do, and then there's a tremendous number of partnerships and working with other people within the community to make sure domestic violence is on the decrease, and working towards all those things that have to happen, because like we said, it affects so many people in so many different ways. So, while I'm here, a few months ago, whatever meetings ago, you authorized the grant for cameras. It was a matching grant, ComEd through the Mayor's Caucus. Is that right,
Mayor's
Dan?
Caucus.
What is it called?
Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus.
Metropolitan Mayor, I forget the first time. Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus provided 10,000 and the city provided 10, so it's 20,000. I believe we've been able to reimburse 189 cameras. It went over the 20 grand by about $900. We had about 5 people come in after we had closed everything out, so there was a few people that did not get a reimbursement. There's a lot of people that contacted us, did not want the reimbursement. They just wanted to appreciate the program and give us the information on about their camera. So all in all, it worked out pretty well. I've got one neighbor had sent me their video from their ring showing a vehicle burglary or vehicle attempted burglary to motor vehicle in progress. They did not get into the car, and we probably will have an arrest coming out from another situation. So it's been a good program, and appreciate the council's efforts on getting the grant and getting it in place so that we can make it work. So thank you.
Have those checks all gone out yet, or?
No.
Okay.
None of them. So then there was some processes, as you recall, with buying the camera, getting the camera inspected,
Yeah.
and those type of things. So the inspections all have been done, so now it's just a matter of Sergeant Squares, who was given the task within the police department, to get those all that information over to Julie and figure out how that payment's going to happen. So that's our next step, and should be coming up within the next couple of weeks easily.
Okay.
Anything else for Chief Thomas? Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Gombeck? Dan, do you have any updates?
This evening, thank you.
Thank you. Takes us to our treasurer's report. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, I'm requesting council's approval of warrant number 2021-12 in the amount of $740,436.65 from the listed funds. Payroll for the period ended October 8th in the amount of $261,769.88 for a total to be approved of $1,002,206.53.
Motion to approve, Alderman Shower, second by Alderman Kenny. Any questions or comments for the treasurer? If none, the roll.
Shower.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
7 ayes.
The warrant's been approved. Our monthly report, Mike?
Okay, our monthly report for the 5 months ended September 30th reflects general fund year-to-date revenue of $7,523,431, expenditures of $5,809,913, current balance of $3,879,054. Water fund year-to-date revenue $2,532,370, expenditures of $2,674,510, current balance of $3,317,385. Motor fuel tax fund year-to-date revenue of $799,115, expenditures of $171,716, for a current balance of $1,186,369. Water depreciation fund year-to-date revenue $4,583, expenditures $15,604, current balance of $2,427,972. Capital improvement fund year-to-date revenue of $191,287, expenditures of $195,213, current balance of $5,438,601.
Any questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike. Takes us to standing committee reports. Do any of the aldermen have any reports for the council? Alderman Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening, the police committee meeting was canceled due to lack of agenda items. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 16th at 6 p.m. across the street into the police training room, pending agenda items.
Thank you. Alderman Belzak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Municipal Services Committee meeting for October 26th is being canceled for lack of agenda.
Thank you. Alderwoman Sullivan?
The Economic Development Committee met this past week, and the next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, November 11th, here in council chambers at 7 p.m. And the next Admin Finance Committee meeting will be on Monday, November 2nd at 6 p.m. prior to the city council meeting.
Thank you, Mary. We move on to questions and comments, agenda related. Does anybody in the audience have any comments they'd like to address the council on regarding any of the items on our consent agenda or our new business agenda? If none, we'll move forward. Takes us to old business. There being none, takes us to our consent agenda. We have 4 items, which I'll read. Item A, consideration of a motion to grant a waiver of the raffle license bond requirement for the Darien Chamber of Commerce. Item B, consideration of a motion to approve the tax levy determination for general and special purposes for fiscal year 2020 to 2021. Item C, consideration of a motion to approve a transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund in an amount of $1,200,000. And item D, consideration of a motion to approving a resolution of a contract extension year 3 with Clean Slate Incorporated to provide janitorial services for the city of Darien beginning November 1st, 2020. Motion to approve. Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderman Kenny. And the roll.
Shower.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
7 ayes.
The consent agenda has been approved. It takes us to new business. We have 2 items. Item A, consideration of a motion to approve an ordinance approving variations from Section 5A-7-2-6A of the Darien Zoning Ordinance, PZC 2020-08, commonly known as 33A Janet Avenue. Motion to approve. Alderman Belzak, seconded by Alderman Shower. Any discussion? If none, the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
7 ayes.
That has been approved by the council. Item B, consideration of a motion to approve an ordinance amending Title 7, Chapter 5 of the Darien City Code, stated as animals, by adding a new subsection 3 to section 7.5.1. Motion to approve. Alderman Belzak, seconded by Alderman Shower, and discussion. Alderman Klistak.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of quick questions here, comments I received from a few few We mentioned 125 feet. How did we come up with that number? Is that just assuming adjacent 125 feet, or do we have concern of residents on the other side of the street? Because the concern I have is someone could be on the other side of the street and they could have say in something that doesn't affect them because it's on the other side of the street. So how do we come up with the 125 foot, and could we maybe change it to 125 feet that's adjacent to the property?
I'm going to let Mr. Gombeck come forward. He could probably answer those questions. And Alderman Belzak and Alderman Kenny, who are on municipal services, might be able to answer those as well.
And then, go ahead.
In respect to the 125 feet, it's from the property line. So from your property, 125 feet radius is what it boils down to. So that's typically your neighbor's house across the street, as well as behind you. The goal of this was to make sure that the neighbors were aware of the situation, and if there was any potential, outcry, that they had the opportunity to voice opinion. Anything further, in this particular case, would not have a cause and effect to anyone beyond the 125 foot.
I think the thing that we need to focus in on tonight is you've already approved the ordinance. Tonight, what we're voting on is the variance procedure. So let's focus our discussion on the variance procedure and not go back to the ordinance itself.
Right.
You
Does that
already
include
approved
the
that.
easement? So if I'm going across the street 124 feet, 125, and it stops before the sidewalk, does it include that neighbor since it's part of the city property, or does it have to be across the sidewalk and actual touching that neighbor's property?
It has to be touching 125 feet from your property line to the next property line. So typically, 125 feet is going to cover the people across the street,
Bless you.
unless you're on Route 83.
Okay, we haven't had any complaints from anyone across the street, so I'm just thought we were getting in additional people, and that wasn't a concern, so.
But Dan, if I'm not mistaken, that when we started looking at this process, we did look at what our current variances were in the zoning, because there's a different section that allows, and I believe there was a couple different criteria. One might have been 250. I think there was
correct.
another one that was 125. So we kind of tried to mirror that to the 125 also. Correct, Dan?
That is correct,
Okay.
yes.
Any other questions on this? Alderman Belzak.
So is there a basis for us limiting the variances to only, I believe, 2 sections? And I bring that up because we all did get the email from the homeowner, I believe on Hickory, who has a chain link fence and currently is not in compliance or won't be in compliance and may not be able to have a new fence by the time. And so my thought process on this is, if she came in and said, I want a variance as to the time that I have to have my fence up, and she provides good cause, and she provides approval of her neighbors, I think I certainly would be willing to give her a variance on the drop dead date on being in compliance. And so my thought was, should we limit it to just the items that we mentioned? And if we're going to have a system, it's going to be in front of us, and we're all going to have to approve it anyway. So I don't see why we would limit it to just the 2 items that we had in the ordinance, or in the proposed ordinance.
Alderman Klistak.
And one item I noticed on here, we call out a renter. Do we do the same, for example, if someone at a business wants a bigger sign and they're renting that business, is it a requirement for that business that the landlord has to be involved as well? Or can a renter of that business have a bigger sign if that's what he needs?
Well, it's always part of the landlord to let the tenant apply for such, a sign, for example, but the landlord obviously is the ultimate one that gives the tenant permission. So in this particular case, it's really the same thing. The owner needs to be aware of it, and we want to make sure that the owner is aware of the situation.
Okay. I just seen that as something I haven't seen before, so.
Mayor, I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna read a couple paragraphs. I got an email from Steve Leopoldo on this issue. And, his thoughts were that he felt there was a fair way of doing the variances. He says, I understand that the reason why fencing was excluded from the variance being proposed for the 19th, but I think there might be a fair way to approach this in relatively of the good discussion that we had on October 5th. I hope that it will be modified to allow families with large lots or unique situations or existing structures that have existed in harmony to request a variance in regards to the type of fence. An example, not a question of no fence. Not a question of no fencing. Maybe letters from neighbors on the side of a yard that doesn't have the prescribed kind of fence, be it height or type. The proposal currently doesn't allow for any consideration of these situations. And then he also asked a question, the notification for 150 seems odd, but I think, Dan, you might have just you answered that. It just involves only adjacent and backyard properties. Any thoughts of what we just heard?
I think we addressed most of the concerns at the last city council meeting during the presentation in regards to unique situations, and I think the message was conveyed that the city council wanted to have a 6-foot privacy fence. So by putting out the fences as a variable item, I think that's going to really present a problem. At what point is it or isn't it a variable item?
But don't you take, on variances, don't you typically take these things on a case by case basis? Because one house on one side of town is totally different than another house on a different side of town, and to be able to put some kind of ordinance, I think it's painting it two things with a white brush.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think, when the staff comes up with draft ordinances, if Dan's doing the roads, it's 100% Dan's going to do the technical requirements and specs and work with Burke. In terms of this process, this is 100% really city council policy. I think Dan pointed out in that variance, it would be hard because you don't have a single standard, but we heard the council last meeting, and that's why we came up with what we did. But I will tell you that section, to me, is really 100% council policy, and nothing you really need answers from the staff because it's not technical in nature. And if you look at a zoning variance, that certainly has some things laid out. The chicken ordinance is a bit different, and it's a bit new. So that again, we thought what was very loud from the council, so that's how we came up with that. We didn't come up with that from any great zoning review or, it wasn't any big decision on our part, other than we tried to reflect in the ordinance what we heard from the council.
But I think sometimes things can be missed. We looked at having an ordinance against idling, and we completely missed being able to put a sign where Stony Bay is. So technical details are actually quite important.
Well, what I'll do
So the whole thing of, the last ordinance, we spent all the time going through the thing, putting a requirement for sign and no idling. We find out it doesn't apply to a truck location, so.
Well, my point was, this is your decision, the council's decision, and the staff really really, because it's policy, it's up to the council. I mean, do you feel you want to vary the fence in the screening requirements? You should that's for the council to discuss.
If I could state something, the council listened to the requests of people who wanted to raise chickens.
Yep.
And the council responded to that by molding an ordinance which called for people in this community to be able to raise chickens according to a set of procedures that you all accepted at the last meeting. We also listened to those people who did not want chickens raised in the city of Darien by adding one condition. and that is that people would have to establish a 6-foot fence around the perimeter of their property so that their neighbors would not have to see the chickens. In my mind, that's how we listened to those people. If you start allowing a variance to that one condition, which you all approved 2 weeks ago, then basically what you're saying is, I would say, is why did you create the ordinance in the first place?
Yeah.
Because then you're opening it up to who knows how many requests for variations just on the fence. That's my opinion. Eric?
Yeah, and frankly, the only reason I voted for this ordinance was because of the mandatory privacy fence. And we're starting to back off on that now, which is totally inappropriate, because now, as the mayor said, we're stepping away from the people that voice concerns about it. We can't just, all of a sudden now, just decide to change the rules of the road.
I don't think we're looking to back off of that issue at all.
Yeah, we are.
No, listen, let me finish. There are some properties that have inclines on their back property that if they had a 4-foot secure privacy fence would satisfy what they're trying to do to stop looking into the yard. So that's what I'm saying is, just because the 6 feet is in the ordinance, there's got to be some way, because of the way people's elevations and stuff on their property. It's almost kind of like the garbage can issues that they have over in your ward and over in Alderman Vaughn's ward.
The way of doing it is put up a 6-foot fence. That's how you fix it. You put up a 6-foot fence and you're done with the issue.
But you wouldn't get a variance, so if my neighbor doesn't like how it looks, he'll come and say, I can't get a signature, so you'll be forced to put up a fence. So I don't see how that variance will affect it. So it'd still meet everyone's requirement, because that neighbor that says, I don't
Yeah,
want to
but
see
how,
the
you gotta
chickens.
get every neighbor, and what happens when you change neighbors? You can't be, I don't like that whole idea of having neighbors sign off on it.
Just
If
to
we
add,
got a rule, we've got a rule, we've got to enforce it.
to add, if I'm understanding what Alderman Clistic mentioned, whether a resident doesn't like it or does, the council will take that into consideration, but that obviously is not the only factor that you would take into account on a variance.
I just think we came up with a very good program. We should just leave it alone.
Mary?
And I think a perimeter fence is very important. However, like Alderman Kenny mentioned and Clistek, is that, and Alderman Belzak as well, there are some properties that have unique settings that are perhaps, we saw the photos from the Flores, that is a very large yard. There is a fence. They have a huge buffer at the back of the yard of natural buffer of trees and bushes. And the yard is so expansive, it would be very cost prohibitive to replace the fence, because they already do have a fence. It's just not the exact kind of fence. So
I can still see the coop. Unless you put up a 6-foot fence. I don't care how far away it is, I can still see it. And that's a no-go for me.
I'd like to hear from Alderman Belcheck. I believe that's your resident, your
Well,
ward, so I'd like
the
to-
point of having the variance was because of what we talked about last time, which was every property's not the same. Lots in my neighborhood are different than lots in Alderman Sullivan's neighborhood. They're different sizes, different shapes. It'd be great if everyone had the same and it was easy to do, but there are unique circumstances, and that's the whole point of a variance, is to bring up a unique circumstance. So my position, or what I think I'd like to see happen, is that we just create a variance procedure and let them come in and explain why they need a variance and why it's important and how the neighbors don't care about it, and then we can make a decision based on that particular circumstance.
We had it tonight. There's people putting a garage right up,
Right, which is
in
an impossible circumstance because of how the property was built when it was built,
Right.
and what the area is. It's not their fault that it went out 33 something feet instead of 35 when the property was built, and now they want to put a garage and an addition on that would certainly make the building better, and that's why we passed it unanimously.
Right.
I think we should have a procedure for variance, and I don't think we should limit it to just the two things that we listed in there. And if someone wants to come in with a good excuse on why they don't need a road improved container, they certainly can try to tell us that, but I don't think we need to say today, no, you can't even bring that to us.
Right.
Obviously, and under that scenario, I don't think anyone would ever say, no, you don't have to have it. That's an important part it's a non-starter. In a situation where someone doesn't have a fence at all, I'm certainly probably not going to be a non-starter on that when they ask for a variance. But in a situation where someone has a 5-foot fence that has slats in it and it's chain link, and she needs more time to put up a permanent fence, I'm certainly going to be open to that. So I don't think every scenario is exactly the same. I'd like to see the variance just allow anyone to ask for a variance. And again, we know what we talked about last week. We know the things that are important to what was in the ordinance. And I think if someone has a good, valid reason on why they need additional time, or how the fence they have there is 5.5 feet and it's privacy, we're going to not make them tear it down to put another half feet if every neighbor agrees with it. That would be kind of silly. So I'd like to see the variance just not have any limits to it. And, we're only talking about what? We don't know exactly, 20, 30 houses in Darien. We're not going to have a rush of people coming in here saying, I want a variance. I don't believe. And if the rush is 30 people, well, we'll deal with 30 people.
I'd venture to say that anybody who has to put a fence up and incur the cost of a fence will come in and ask for a variance.
They may very well.
And you will deluge our building department with those variations, and U.S. Municipal Services will be meeting with those week after week in order to do that. You're going to open up a Pandora's box by doing that. People who want to have chicken coops in their backyard and spend thousands of dollars to have chicken coops in their backyard need to understand that we need to also listen to the people who don't want to see those chicken coops in their backyard.
And as I said last week, that was my line in the sand, that you had to have that, and I still agree with that. But there are going to be scenarios where it's not going to be perfect, and they need a slight variance. And again, asking for not having a fence is way different than saying, I have a 5-foot fence, it's partially covered, I don't have a 6-foot fence, I need more time. That's a totally different argument. And again, we're not talking about hundreds of properties. We are talking, to the best of our knowledge, a few dozen properties, and some of them are probably already in compliance or don't need any variances.
And there's people out there that are probably not going to, you're going to take the chance, you're going to roll the dice, and they're not going to say anything.
So I'm in favor of having a variance. I'm just not in favor of having
I mean, there's a
the
lot
limit
of
to
people that left that meeting assuming that there had to be a privacy fence, who were happy with that, and now all of a sudden you're changing the rules of the road on them, which I think is totally wrong. Yeah, you're changing the rules.
The rules aren't changing.
Yeah, you
The
are, because
ordinance
now
still
you're giving a
says,
variance capability, which that did not exist before. So it didn't exist, and now you're allowing that to happen, and that's wrong.
But
That's not what those people agreed to
the
when they
ordinance
left
is
this
the
meeting.
ordinance. It says a 6-foot privacy perimeter.
And where is everybody that wants this variance now? Where are all these people?
Well, we got emails.
I don't see anybody here. You got
emails to-
one email. That's it.
Well, then that's maybe the only person that's going to ask for it because of their special
Then one
circumstances.
person that can pay for the fence.
Well, they pretty much made it clear in the email that they can't pay for the fence.
Yeah, they can pay for the fence. Right.
I guess another question I have is, when it comes to, and we've referenced the Janet Lane, right? Property that got the zoning variance today. Is it, when it comes to property variances for other things, or I sat on planning and zoning, so we would see variances, whether it was be for driveways, patios, pools. Isn't anything something that you can request a variance for when it comes to your property?
There's certain things you can that are variable, certain other things aren't.
Can't. That's right.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more open and less limiting.
Well, it's a lot more open, but there's a lot more standards that need to be satisfied to the intent of the code.
And that's for most of that zoning. So we have,
Right.
if somebody wanted to have 4 dogs, and our ordinance
Right.
only allows X amount, there's no variance. So, which is the problem we ran into with this particular ordinance, because it's not part of the zoning. But the one thing I would add, if the council is going to consider a fence as part of the variance, and we did talk about this at the staff level, is one of the criteria is you'll gauge financial hardship. Would that be something, if somebody comes in and says it's going to cost X amount more money, Because I think you might get properties that are unique, but you will probably have people say, why would I have to spend, like the resident who emailed already today? So I think the council just needs to be aware if that will be a criteria you would consider if somebody comes forward.
Let me run a scenario, okay? Someone's got a 3-foot chicken coop, a very small one, short one, okay? You know, that a 5-foot privacy fence is doing the job. You can't see it because Alderman Gustafson's concerned about the thing with it. All right, now if someone's got, say, a 5-foot, chicken coop, because all chicken coops come in all different shapes and sizes. Now that person definitely has to have a 6-foot because so it doesn't see in there. So that's why I think it's very important to be able to have some kind of variance because you can't because every situation is different. Every driveway is different. Every house is different. Every garage is different. This should be no different.
In terms of the ordinance, then if the council does want to make any changes collectively, we would need to go through the different letters, because as an example, if you just blankly say you could come for anything of a variance, somebody could come with a variance for roosters. And I don't think the council really wants roosters under any variance. So it would, I mean, really, it's simple going through the letters and adding those to the section that says what sections can be part of that variance. Do you want to have a variance for the number of chickens that are allowed on a property, as an example? So that would be the exercise for the council tonight, should there be some agreement that other things should be included in the variance process.
Can I bring up, before we possibly go through it in deeper detail, Alderman Belzak brought up a point about just extended time. Would that be something that would have to have a variance requirement for? Can someone just apply or appeal for additional time?
No, I will, in all reality, if somebody came to the staff, like we have on other property maintenance or other things that we would cite, if somebody came to us and they, in good faith, were going to comply a few weeks later, we're not going to issue tickets. That's not practical to do in that case. And that's most of our ordinances. If somebody's garage is falling down, we say you have to fix it by X date, and they need 3 more weeks. There's some discretion we would take on, not a lot in this case, because this one is very specific. If somebody said, listen, I have 8 chickens, I know I only have to have 6, but what am I going to do with the 2 chickens? In 2 weeks, I have my cousins coming to take them. We're not going to issue that person a ticket. So we're going to use a little discretion in enforcing the ordinance. But if, it wouldn't be on fencing, we wouldn't, as a staff, do the fencing. We wouldn't say, oh, you could have 10 chickens all the time.
Well, the other thing, though, Mary, is we are asking them to show good faith by March 1st. If a family came in and they had a contract on March 1st to have a fence put up, and that fence wasn't in by May 1st, but we knew it would be up by May 15th, I'm sure there's some allowance made for that. So I don't know if I want to build in another date as a variation. I think we're giving them.
No, I wasn't looking to build in another date. I just was wondering, was this another
I think we always
avenue without making it an official document in terms of flexibility for people?
We do that now, Mayor, as Brian
Yeah,
explained.
and that was important that you shared that. I was wanting you to share that with the public.
Right. I mean, we do that now. I mean, those of us who've sat on municipal services, there's leeway that we give based on situations like that. We're not inflexible.
Similar to the garbage container ordinance, that became a hot button a couple weeks ago, and we certainly are working with people, if we have for a long time, in terms of time frames, and so that, we would do something similar.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's item I and double I with regards to what we can and can't bring or ask for a variance. This is what most of the discussion I'm getting at, correct?
I couldn't hear you, Tom, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so ultimately, we're looking at just with regards to what can and can't be brought for a variance.
Well, item I talks about what can be
Okay.
applied for a variance, and if there was more, we would just simply add the ones that can be varied to that. We wouldn't have to do a yes and no list. We could just do expand the list that's under small letter I.
Okay.
Is that your question?
Yes, yeah, that explains it. Do we do this on anything else? I guess I wasn't planning in zoning or municipal services. I remember one time a property that's going to be a RV and camping location near Frontage Road and the yacht club or the bar there, and it came in with like 40 variances, and I was like, how did this ever get to council? I can't believe this even got this far. But the reality of it is it had such a unique piece of property that wouldn't have been utilized if we didn't allow all those variances. So it's interesting that I've never seen before where we call out what you can or can't. Have you done that in other areas?
Well,
like we're making
that was, again, what you're talking about, it's much different. It's a zoning ordinance. Here, there are differences of, you want to allow roosters as an example. So there would have to be things, and we came across this. This was a bit unique. In talking about it last week, we all talked about the variance process without looking back at all of our codes, and that came up during that meeting. But it's not uncommon that you could ask for relief for certain parts if that's what the council's desire is, because there are a number of these things we put in here. It can't be a slaughterhouse. We don't want somebody to ask for a variance on that. So, I don't recall a specific ordinance without looking through. But I think even a zoning might have. I don't recall, Dan. Some of our codes, the sign code might have different variances. So I don't know that they're all like this or not, but they are different. But
Yeah, and that's
based on what you're asking for.
And that's the key thing. I mean, if we were to take the general requirements for the variances that are in the zoning, that would not be practical to this situation for the chickens, is really what it boils down to. So, and if I'm hearing this correctly, the city council would like to amend for variances the 6-foot fence. Am I hearing that correctly?
I don't know. I'm not hearing that's definitive
I'm
yet.
not
We
saying,
should probably.
But I hear
I'm not
the
saying
city-
change. I'm not saying change an ordinance. I'm saying
I hear the city council saying that they think the 6-foot fence, privacy fence requirement is important. But what they're saying is if someone comes in and due to the conditions of their backyard, they may, let's say they have a large backyard, maybe they only have to ask for variation, they only have to enclose so much of that backyard. Or something like that. I think they're looking for variations within that process. I don't think they're looking to eliminate or have people come in and say, I don't want to put up a 6-foot fence and this is why. I think they're saying we accept the 6-foot fence, but we think there's going to be conditions that certain residents might face because of the layout of their property, which might merit consideration. Maybe it would be a 6-foot fence, not necessarily around the perimeter, but around a certain area,
Yeah, we're clear on that. I think we just
Right,
want to
so-
know which
Yeah.
items to put in letter I. And,
Exactly.
And the scenario the mayor just gave really does talk about unique properties.
Right.
It doesn't talk about the fact that it's going to cost more.
Right.
And not that that's right or wrong, but you will get some that will ask, hey, why would I have to have the additional expense because I have a 4-foot fence up, the chickens can't get out. But really, I think now is we're trying to get a consensus on what items, if any, the council would like to include in the variance process that are currently not included.
I mean, right now you have letters, what, H,
2D,
D, and E.
correct. So
Those are the two that
Are non-variable.
Ask for a variance.
So just as an example, item A talks about detached single-family resident zoning lots containing a minimum of 6,000 square feet as an accessory use. So what if somebody comes in and says, my lot is larger, I have a 12,000 square foot lot, can I have 12 hens? So,
No.
and yes or no, I don't know, I mean, I don't know that would happen, but that's an example. So is A something that you want to allow residents to at least request a variance? And Mayor, I think if we just go through each letter is probably what the staff is looking for.
I guess my question is, why are we going through all these items
Yeah.
tonight when we
Right,
approved
tonight.
this ordinance
Right.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
I mean, we had people in the audience, they brought forth their feelings. We received over 100 emails.
Right.
And based on all that information, we formulated an ordinance. We went through each item 2 weeks ago. We agreed on each item 2 weeks ago
Yeah.
and even modified it. And now we're sitting here tonight saying, let's go through each item again and let's
Yeah.
see which one we want to put in under a I don't understand the duplication of effort here, why we're doing this. If all you're worried about is the fence, then state that. I mean, we received one email from one resident about a fence,
Yeah.
and all of a
One.
sudden, we're opening up the whole ordinance again?
Yeah.
I don't
For
understand
one
that.
person? Come on.
Procedurally, I'd like to know where you want to go. I need clarification.
Well, I guess we're not, in my opinion, we're not opening up the whole ordinance.
There you are.
What's being presented to us is relief from certain requirements. That's what was brought back to the council.
Brian asked the question, which one of these, it seemed like there was an indication that you wanted other of these items under the variation.
Well, I am not looking, my discussion tonight is solely centered on the fence.
Then we need to know that. That's what we're asking.
Well, that's my opinion.
And mine is based on a case by case basis. The ordinance says
Everything.
the ordinance says 6 feet. You know, and to Alderman Belzak's case. Look, if that's a problem, come May 1st or March 1st, whatever date it is, then approach zoning or.
I guess my question then is, because I need to know this, staff needs to know this. We have items A through Q. Right now, we have 2 items. What is it, Dan? D and E.
D and E.
That are under consideration for variance. Do you want to add anything else under as a possible variance?
So it would be allowing C and D as a variance.
D and E.
D and E.
D and E.
E&E is already allowed to be applied for variance. And the letter for the fence
Is H.
H.
is H.
Well, that's what you're proposing, that is this technically an amendment to the ordinance to allow for relief of certain
Yeah,
requirements?
everything that's, you're
Yes.
looking at
Right,
that's
with
underlined.
underlined, yes.
That's the whole new section.
Right.
That
That
and
was what
again,
was
we
be-
would not have brought this forward if it weren't for us, the group, talking about a variance process at the last meeting. So, that became a topic. That's why we brought it back. But it's basically the things that are underlined, and it's just that new section, which is section 3, relief from certain requirements. So it's not a big, rewrite. If the council said fences, we would just amend that section to include fences. But as the mayor said, I don't know if that is it. We're just asking. I think Alderman Clistic mentioned a yes and no list, so we're just trying to understand.
What you want?
Yeah.
That's all.
I guess looking at the list now, you're accurate in that really the only things that would be D, E, and H would be the only other one. We're not going to say you can't have humane conditions. Those
Correct.
aren't the type of things that we're going to ask for a variance. We want to have an inhumane chicken coop. So I do, again, H was the perimeter fence was very important to me last week. I just think there might be situations that require an exception. And if we want to divide H into perimeter fencing around the yard, and then H one, small 1, and H small 2, it must be 6 foot, and then we kind of limit whether we want to have a privacy.
Because there's no guarantee you're getting the variance.
No, has to go in front of municipal services first, based on this.
Well, it'd have to go through planning and zoning first, wouldn't it?
No, it won't.
No, we said
Not
no
based
to that.
on how we've written it.
Okay.
Are you going to create conditions under which a variance?
Yeah.
When we give a variance at municipal services, tell me if I'm wrong, there are 6 or 7 conditions that have to be met. So how are you going to judge H
Right.
without creating those conditions?
And
Again, I think-
3AI was, in a sense, to do that in terms of additional expenses associated with complying with sections shall not be considered.
Right, so if there's a hardship, a financial hardship, that is not a qualification for a variation.
And if somebody comes in and says, all my neighbors love the chickens and none of them feel that they care that I have chickens in the backyard, that's not a reason for a variance to be granted either.
Correct.
Joe and I think Mary are talking, and Tom are talking about, Tom Belzak are talking about physical conditions of a residence piece of property that might
And I,
force you to take a look at a variation.
that's correct, Mayor, and I think to put it a little more in perspective, if a property, which obviously has 4 sides, 3 of the sides, let's say, are in compliance, and they put up a 6-foot fence, and the rear of the property happens to be against a forest preserve. So in that particular case, that is a variance that would be more than likely approved by the city council. No one sees from the forest preserve back into your yard. So I think that that's a very simple example, but I think that's where we're driving at without getting into grade variations, which becomes a little more complicated for the, for this evening, I think.
Hey, this is Lester. What about those who have pre-existing fences already? Are we going to make them? Are we going to make them tear the fence down to create a 6-foot fence? And I think that's what Joe Kenny and Mary are speaking on. Is that these folks have they already have fences. I think Athena Flores emailed today or today. They have a 9,600 square foot yard. So do we make them tear their fence down to create a 6-foot fence?
The answer in that case would be, in order to comply, they would have to take down that fence and put up a brand-new fence that meets the code as it is written today.
Right.
Well, when we do look at architecture standards for a business, we sort of all agreed that we're not going to make a business tear down an old architecture from the 1980s that I think is ugly because it'd be additional expense. So we're allowing a business potentially, looking at our architectural standards to be grandfathered in, but we can't have a resident do it, which I think is sort of a two-sided sword there.
Well, I think the additional expense in the architecture we talked about might actually create where people don't want to rehab at all. I mean, I would not compare those two as similar discussions. That's just me. The council might agree or not, but it is definitely a different situation, because we talked about if we did allow that and somebody decided they didn't want to develop a property. So it's just more detailed, in my opinion, that discussion.
Dan,
But
I have a
we
question.
are still putting forward a guideline that's going to be reviewed by the municipal services in respect to, we're digressing, but
Yeah.
Dan, if I, let me ask you a question. If, let's say, the 3 items would be, item 2D and 2E, and you added H, 2H, how difficult would it be to determine factors that would need to be waived for a variance?
I think it's pretty simplistic, and let's just run through another scenario with the 20 feet lot line. Let's say that the property is a unique shape, and it's a pie shape, and the 20 feet cannot be met from 2 sides to a point, which would be less than 20 feet. So again, in that example, I think it's really, the city council would grant that just due to the uniqueness of the lot and the pie shape. So again, I'm not sure if there's always a circumstance that may or may not fit the characteristics that we've established.
I can tell you, when we were working on that, I think Alderwoman Sullivan, we were just talking, and that could have been one, if you put a chicken coop 10 foot or 5 feet closer, or 2 feet, and it gets more sun, somebody might ask for that because it's better for the chickens. I think that might have been an example. Whether right or wrong, that's one of the reasons we included it in there, because not only it might be unique for the property, it might be unique for raising chickens.
Right, chickens have certain requirements, and someone's yard might be 80% shaded, whereas they need so much sun. There might be already, mature trees and bushes and, so I think the term here that's sticking out to me is unique circumstances. And I am totally in favor of and an advocate of perimeter fencing. I mean, everyone needs to have a fence up because chickens don't always stay in the coop. They might run around the yard a little bit. but every yard is different, and every situation's unique, and especially for people who have a much larger parcel that's already fenced, part of the, one side of the property already is very wooded, and there still is a fence there, but the cyclone fence is already, there's, the wooded part covers more of it than a privacy fence ever would. So it's just, that's just one example. There might be a few other out there, but by no means am I saying someone should come in and say, well, I don't want a fence. I don't want to have any fence, or I just want to have a small little picket fence, or like a landscaping feature. No, that's not the point here. The point is you need a fence, and if you're putting in a fence, you should put in a 6-foot privacy fence.
In many situations, I have a good friend who has a next door neighbor who has chickens. And that next door neighbor has a fence already. And on the other side, the neighbor has a 6-foot fence. And the neighbor in back has a 6-foot fence. So his backyard, in effect, is enclosed already, except for the fence to his house. So, I mean, you're going to have situations where people who may have chickens who have neighbors who've already fenced off their backyards.
Well, most of the coops I visited already are in compliance. They already have privacy fences.
Worrying about one person.
I would, from our perspective, if the council was going to add anything to the what's allowed to be varied, that's a simple fix. But if the council wants us to come up with a criteria that the council is going to review by, I would not want to do that tonight, because wouldn't want to come back a third time and change it. So if there's an interest in that part, I would say we should come back in 2 weeks for so we could put together some criteria that the council will use or as a basis for granting variances. I don't know if that's...
Or the simple thing is leaving it as a case-by-case, solution.
Yeah, because the way we have it now, it's not a financial reason, so it is a case-by-case.
Right.
And again, even if we put the criteria in there, I'm just afraid there'll be something that came up
Too limited.
that'll be a different criteria that, we didn't think of that, but we should have. I mean, it's really the council's discretion at the end of the day, so.
So really, we can't vote on this tonight.
Well, if you want to add something to the variance process, you can vote on that. And the only thing I'm saying is if the council is telling us to come up with a criteria that they're going to use when they review the variances, that we're not ready to do tonight. We would have to put some time, but if the council doesn't want that in the ordinance and they want to change it, then by adding things.
If this got voted down tonight, and then come May 1st, somebody is going to try to approach us for some kind of, variance, because, they're not going to be able to get it.
There would be no process
Right,
to
okay.
ask for a variance of any of the sections if this is not approved.
Okay.
Personally, I'd like to see what our standards are going to be on this, and I don't think we need to approve or disapprove this today.
No.
I mean, we got till March 1st or
1st.
May 1st, depending on what we're looking at,
You're
to
right.
get everything together. If we kick this down the road for a meeting or two, I don't see what difference it would make.
And
I
we
mean,
can
right
co-
now, an ordinance is in place, correct? Well, we passed last
What
week.
you passed already, correct, without,
The only thing that's not passed is any way to
Amend it.
to
Variance,
ask for a variance. And,
correct.
and so no one can ask for a variance for the month of October.
and we,
It's not the end of the
Your ordinance
world.
is passed already.
Yes.
Right.
Tonight, all you were voting on is the variation procedure. That's all.
So
and we could do that in 2
we
weeks.
could have some standards that everyone could look at.
Yeah.
I think we'd probably be in a better position to vote yes or no on this.
We can do that and have that for 2 weeks out, the next council meeting.
So, can I withdraw my motion?
What we'd need to do is to make a motion to postpone this issue,
That's what I was
and then it could be brought back at another time.
We need a motion to table,
To postpone.
postpone.
What's the difference between postponing and tabling?
Okay, table means you're going to bring it up by the end of the evening. Postpone means you're going to do it at another date. It could be defined or indefinite.
Okay,
Postpone.
postpone.
Can I make a motion to postpone my own motion?
We'll just go from the postpone, and then the other will be just,
We already have a motion and a second.
but
There is a
that's
motion.
on what's proposed. That's
Correct.
on the ordinance change. So now he would like to make a
I'll make a
motion to
motion to postpone.
postpone action on that particular
Action on-
ordinance motion.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Second.
Shower? In the vote, roll.
Belzak,
Aye.
Shower,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Aye.
Vaughn. I'm sorry. Vaughn,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Gustafson,
Aye.
Clistic,
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay. That'll come back to us then, at the, actually, the November. what
Well,
is our-
you don't want to set a date for sure, right?
Yeah, don't.
Set the date.
Not
have
until
to
we
set
have
it.
the stuff, but.
All
But
right.
you're aiming for the next meeting, November.
Yeah,
Second.
we,
Or you could, yes.
Okay.
We could, or we could give staff more time. It's like you
Okay.
said, we have till March 1st anyway. The ordinance has been approved. People have direction via the ordinance.
Yep.
Okay.
and I did mention to Ms. Flores that I would let her know tonight. So I don't know if any of the council members are planning on emailing her with any updates for whatever reason, but I will do that, just so you're aware.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Brian.
That takes care of our normal business. We go to questions, comments, and announcement of a general nature. Do any of the aldermen have anything they'd like to share with the council?
I think the Lions Club are doing something special for trick or treat, correct?
The Lions Club is holding a trunk or treat on
Yeah, yeah.
Saturday, October 31st, from 1 till 4 in the afternoon at this Darien Swim and Recreation Club. There'll be 6 cars that'll be decorated. Each car will have toys, sealed gifts. All the members who participate will be wearing masks, will be wearing gloves, and the children will will not get out of cars. The cars will proceed through the parking lot. And the children will get their toys that way. Trick-or-treating will also be available within our community. We have left that up to parents. That's their decision as to whether or not they conduct that. I've had parents ask about the best time. I said, since it's a Saturday, why not take them out in the afternoon when it's light out to do that? So that's taking place again on October 31st. I would also mention that the Darien Chamber of Commerce is holding a golf outing this weekend. There's still time to participate. There's probably about 40 golfers who are signed up already. The chamber could really use your assistance if you're looking forward to playing golf and you want to get a foursome together. Call April Padalecki and let April know. It's $100 per person. And the Darien Historical Society is still planning on having a tree lighting ceremony on Sunday, December 6th. They will not be going into the basement of the Historical Society as they have in past years, and they will not be asking the Eisenhower Choir to sing as in past years. Santa Claus will be present. They will give out packaged gifts to the children who do show up with their parents, but the entire ceremony will be held outside, and they've already contacted the city about decorating the tree with lights and ornaments on the corner. And I know that's kind of far ahead, but this way then you can plan for that event, December 6th. Anything else, Mary?
Well, we need to have things to look forward to, that's for sure. Early voting started today, and we've got, Darien is lucky to have 2 locations, Safety Village and the Darien Office Complex, which is located at 8255 South Lamont Road. So early voting is Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And at those locations, it started today and it goes through November 2nd. So get out the vote. I do believe also those locations have the ballot mailboxes located inside. So if you did request a mail-in ballot and have completed it, you can safely drop it inside those boxes inside the building. You do not need to wait in line if there's a queue to actually vote. You can bypass the queue to go inside to drop off your ballot.
Safety Village, I voted today, and they had a handful of booths in there, and it moved actually pretty quick. It was just from inside the park, just the parking lot, just to getting into the sidewalk, into, and then around the building up. It was probably about 30 minutes outside.
Great.
One other thing, I know this is a pitch for the Lions Club. Darien Lions Club normally in October is out on street corners over a weekend collecting for candy, what they call Candy Day. And the Lions Club collects anywhere from $25,000 to $40,000 over that weekend and through our businesses. Well, this year, they're not going to be on the corners. But this year, they've established, I believe, a website, and they've established a Facebook page where you can go on that Facebook page and you can make a donation. And just to let people know, 60% of the money that they collect, 40% of the money they collect comes right back into the Darien community for children, for blindness, for deafness, for cancer research for children. That's all money well spent in the Darien community. So if you can, and you do see that advertisement on your Facebook page, or if you have an opportunity, you could write a check to the Darien Lions Club for their Candy Day effort. And then, Tom, you were at the board meeting as well. The other thing, there is going to be a food basket program this year. The Darien Lions Club will be conducting their regular food basket program in December. Last year, they fed close to 250 families with 2 weeks of groceries. And they're going to be operating that again. It's $75. If you care to make a donation, you'd write a check to the Darien Lions Club Foundation. And this weekend, the Darien Lions and the Our Lady of Peace are conducting a food drive for the food pantry program and it will be conducted, I think, in the afternoon, again, at Our Lady of Peace. And I realize a lot of these are Lions Club activities, but these are all community activities that benefit our community. Tom?
And one last thing, Mayor. I believe goal session October 28th for any residents that want to come.
October 28th, starting at 6:30 in the police training room, I believe, right?
Yes, and we did send out that survey that we like to include. If everybody gets a chance, please send that in because we like to tabulate it. And we'll have the packet we're planning to send out this Thursday for the meeting next week.
Anything else?
The survey went out?
There was
Well, the giving you ideas.
I'm sorry. No, we did.
No.
There was two things. One, there was a survey asking for ideas and dates. Then there was another survey on staff services, communication, police services.
I didn't see that.
Grading what we do best
Okay.
and what we do worst.
Yeah, and you grade A, B, C, D.
Okay.
We'll check.
Okay, yeah,
And
please.
resend.
Yeah, I did the other thing,
Yeah,
but I
no,
didn't
I'll
see
resend
the
that right now.
other one. Please. Thanks.
Anything else? For the good of the order. All right, motion to adjourn. Alderman Kennedy, seconded by Alderwoman Sullivan. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned at 8:59.